Total Drama All-Stars is the third installment of the franchise to utilize the All-Star format, which... Huh? Okay. So I'm being told right now that Total Drama All-Stars is the first installment, not the third, to utilize this format. And to that I say, no, you're wrong. It is the third installment. What were the other two? Oh, well, that's easy. Total Drama Action and Total Drama World Tour. Yeah, the all-star hook of this season already feels stale, simply because they've reused the first generation cast in 3 different seasons already. If this were Season 3 and Revenge of the Island was Season 2, that would be one thing. Granted, it would feel like this season was too early in the run, but I digress. Yeah, I'm not going to hold back with this one. Total Drama All-Stars is easily the worst season of the entire franchise. Even worse than Pocatello Island. And that season was a disaster in its own right, so you can imagine just how bad I think this one is. So what do you say we just get into it and get it over with? So the season opens with Chris McClane getting released from prison. You did not mishear that sentence. Yeah, remember when Chris was busted at the end of last season for filling Camp Wawanakwa with toxic waste? Yeah, this is the payoff to that. And I absolutely love that despite the fact that he's now a convicted felon, the network still wants him back to host the show. But whatever, he's back, moving on. Just like the previous season, this season takes place at Camp Wawanakwa, but this time free of any and all toxic waste. So now it's just an ordinary cesspool like it was in the original season. Most of the gameplay elements introduced last season are back this season, which includes the Chris McClane immunity statuette, only with a little wrinkle this time. See, in Season 1, we were introduced to this location known as Boney Island. Basically, it's a remote location that's known to house extinct or endangered animals and gives off a haunted status of sorts. During the team phase, one player from the winning team is exiled to Boney Island, where they have to spend the night fending for themselves. Oh yeah, I should probably mention that Chris conveniently moved all of the mutated animals from last season to Boney Island, so the player is doubly fucked. But they can spend their night fending for themselves to look for the Chris McClane immunity statue. So, if they get eliminated, they can save their asses. If there is a downside to this, is that we don't really get to see the contestants and their adventures on Boney Island while they're banished. Which is a shame, really, because like with last season, if this season had the standard 26 episodes, we could have gotten a chance to get more in depth into Boney Island. But we don't get that. So it kind of just feels more like fan service than anything else, really. Speaking of fan service, it's time to meet our cast. Representing the second generation cast, we have Sam, Lightning, Scott, Cameron, Joe, Zoe, and Mike. Or should I say Mal? Yeah, I'll get to that in a bit. And now, repping the first generation, we have Courtney, Heather, Gwen, Lindsay, Duncan, Sierra, and Alejandro. Yeah, I should probably explain this one. So remember when Alejandro got burned in World Tour? Well, apparently he's been stuck in that Total Drama robot machine thing ever since. And keep in mind, it's been well over a calendar year since Season 3 in Universe.
Look who finally came to visit me after a whole year.
So who the hell was in charge of watching Alejandro in this machine thing? Why was he never let out? Why the hell hasn't the show been sued yet?
Wow.
Oh, and just for shits and giggles, here's how his reveal is treated.
I have so many
I don't understand!
So Alejandro is originally put on one of the teams while still in the robot suit. Then the bullshit happens and he's freed. But even then, it's still bad.
Last thing I remember, I was burned to a crisp by the volcano, and Chris sealed me up in that robot suit to heal.
You can probably already tell the issue with this. As it turns out, Alejandro has a brand new voice actor this season. And it doesn't sound great.
My legs are so asleep, it's like they're in a coma. Wakey, wakey! Nothing.
And if I seduce Heather, Courtney will remain unaffected. If only we could weaken both at once.
I do want to say that I don't blame the new voice actor for the lesser performance. It's obvious from the inflections that he is trying to capture the original spirit of Alejandro, but the voice tone makes him sound a lot whinier than he did in his original appearance. Combine that with the character nerfing that everyone got this season, and Yeah, it's a recipe for disaster. And you know something? That's the least of the issues with the characters this season. Character derailment and assassination is a massive problem for All Stars. Not every character gets completely destroyed. For some, it's just minor. Like, say, Lindsay. Yeah, she's the first one eliminated this time around, and I really don't like it. Mainly because of this group, she's one of my favorite characters. I really hate that she votes herself off, but at least this time it's intentional, unlike Action. Yeah, she basically decides that she doesn't want to put up with any more total drama bullshit, and honestly, while it's a bummer that she left the show so early this season, it was pretty funny. Unfortunately, examples like that one for Lindsay are few and far to come, because on the other end of the spectrum, you have whatever they did with Duncan, Courtney, and Gwen. I just have one question in regards to what they did with them this season. Just one. And that one question is...
Why?
Like, no, I'm dead serious. Why did you do this with these three characters? Courtney makes it pretty damn clear throughout the season that she's completely over Duncan, even still antagonizing Gwen to this day. Gwen is non-stop guilty over everything that happened, and yet Duncan... Duncan obviously still has a thing for Courtney. Like, he will straight up want Courtney to notice him doing something badass or whatever. He is clearly not over her, and it gets to the point where Gwen finally decides to end things with him.
You think she was watching?
I can't do this anymore. It's over.
What just happened?
Before they're eliminated, Gwen does try to make nice with Courtney, and there is a little bit of development on that front, and it is nice to see. But it so was not worth having to put up with the love triangle bullshit again. And you know what? While I'm stuck on these characters, let's talk about Courtney for a second. It was almost like the show could not figure out what they wanted to do with her. They constantly have her flip-flop between trusting Gwen and not trusting Gwen, and then in her elimination episode, they turn her into a backstabbing bitch. But the dumbest part is that it literally comes out of nowhere!
Winning is everything. This is the farthest I've ever made it on Total Drama, and I am going all the way.
I mean, technically, it isn't really? I mean, she is eliminated in the third to last episode of the season, which was also the case in Total Drama Action. Except it gets a little weird because Courtney came into Action mid-season, whereas in this season she started from the beginning. But she also appeared in more episodes in World Tour and made it farther in terms of cast of characters, but she also made it to the final four in Action and made it to what was supposed to be the penultimate episode, except...
Oh no, I've gone cross-eyed.
She supposedly gets her karmic justice later on in that same episode, but I can't even feel good about it because it's the result of Chris pulling a rule change out of his ass. Oh, there's also this dumbass thing where she and Scott briefly entertain a romantic relationship with each other. It's so stupid and pointless that I can't even imagine why they did it. Like, in-universe, I assume the idea was for Courtney to make Duncan jealous, except for the fact that she and Scott have even less chemistry with each other than she and Duncan did. Speaking of Duncan, let's get to him. So Duncan's whole thing this season is the prevailing belief that he's, quote, gone soft, because he acts way less harsh and cynical than he did in previous seasons, almost to the point of being annoying. Now, Duncan has been shown to have a softer side to him in the past. That's not the problem. The problem is it's used as a setup just to get him to a point where he snaps and, in an effort to show he's still a badass, destroys Chris's cottage.
It was not a cottage.
Which ultimately resulted in him getting arrested and booted off the show. And,
It's a big boy jail for you, bro. I didn't know you weren't supposed to put a toaster in the microwave. Snuggle muffins. Justice.
Fuck you.
There's also another kind of sort of big thing that they do with Duncan, except they don't really do it, but it's kind of worth bringing up anyway because it ties into other characters.
I'm telling you, he's dangerous. I knew him back in juvie when his name was Mal.
What's happening here?
Just something about your voice. It's kind of familiar.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
When I was a lowly punk in juvie, he was running the place. But back then, his name was Mal.
No, you did not mishear that, but I will get into that more when I talk about Mike. Right now, I want to focus on the fact that this doesn't lead to anything! Yeah, they go through this whole song and dance routine where it feels like they're going to set up something between Duncan and Mike, but nothing substantial ever actually comes of it. There's never a real, legitimate confrontation between Duncan and Mike. Hell, as far as Mike is concerned, Duncan is just that famous contestant from the previous seasons of Total Drama. Hell, does Mike even remember ever being in juvie? Like, that's a legitimate question. They make a big deal about how Mike cannot remember anything that his alternate personalities do while they're in control of his mind, so it stands to reason that that would be extended towards this Mal character. See, it's not the fact that they introduced this into the story that bothers me, it's the fact that they didn't do anything with it. And as a result, despite the fact that his, quote, gone soft arc comes to a close with him being arrested, his story still feels incomplete. Why would you introduce a link between Mike and Duncan if you weren't actually going to use it to further his story? Oh, and one more thing.
I know that tune.
That's In the Hall of the Mountain King, an orchestral piece that's been around since the 1870s. Anyone who's anyone knows that piece. Why are you trying to make it bigger than it actually is? Seriously, the show's writing this season is awful. Next, we have Scott. His big thing this season is that weird relationship, whatever thing that he had with Courtney. It was weird and uncomfortable from Courtney's side because of the whole love triangle bullshit between her, Gwen, and Duncan, but I actually found Scott's attitude and interactions towards Courtney to be somewhat charming. I'm not saying it was a good relationship, and I'm certainly glad it didn't become a long-term thing, but in terms of short-term enjoyment, I thought it was fine. Unfortunately, that's really all he was good for this season. It's a shame, too, because Scott does have potential to be a good antagonist, but of course, they had to go with what they did for this season, which I will get to. Next, let's talk about Gwen. Her big thing this season was coming back to Total Drama to make amends with Courtney over the love triangle bullshit. While I appreciate the fact that the show wanted to take the extra step to bring some sort of closure to this saga, especially after the sour note it ended on in Season 3, part of me kind of wishes they hadn't touched it again and it just left good enough alone. It might just be a me thing, but I found it more annoying than I think it should have, especially since when Courtney and Gwen were allowed to just be friends, I kind of liked them together. There was also this really stupid thing that the show did. Something would go horribly wrong that would either embarrass or injure Courtney. So suddenly Gwen was bad luck or whatever, and Chris kept trying to frame it like she was being malicious towards Courtney. Gotta find some way to justify the heroes versus villains storyline of the season. That did get dropped rather quickly, which honestly was the right call, but picking up the love triangle again between these three was just really stupid. Let's talk about Lightning and Joe next, because they're actually eliminated in succession in the second and third episodes. Lightning is sadly a victim of flanderization. His stupidity is taken to the next level. What do I mean by this? Well, apparently he doesn't know how to fucking count.
We didn't put it together wrong. There are only 6 pieces.
Great. So Lightning miscounted.
I counted 7. This is a conspiracy.
Why can't you just go fuck yourself?
As for Joe, well, she's the one that rallies her team to have Lightning voted off in that episode, and then in the following episode, she spends her time wondering whether or not that was actually the right call.
Maybe it wasn't the best idea to dump Lightning so fast.
I told you you'd regret it. Ha! I win.
Yes it was. Lightning is not a team player, nor is he the smartest person in the room. So, yeah, I'd say you really didn't lose that much by voting him out. But apparently the team didn't feel the same way, because they voted her out at the end of that episode. I don't care for Lightning at all, and Joe's hardly my favorite character, but it does suck that they were just tossed aside like this in favor of the stupidity that the show actually went for. Let's talk about Cameron and Sierra next. I pretty much have to because the show insists on pairing them together. No, not like that. See, Sierra is so homesick for Cody that she looks at Cameron and has convinced herself that he's Cody. Yeah, the girl's fucking insane. Just like in World Tour, her shtick here gets old very quickly. Although it's even worse this time around, because I didn't laugh a single time with any of her antics, which is, remarkably, something that I can't say was the case for World Tour. This season only solidifies that Sierra learned nothing from her experience on World Tour, and therefore should not be rewarded for her behavior. It gets to the point where Cameron willingly volunteers for exile on Boney Island just to get the fuck away from her. What was even the point of making Cameron Sierra's Cody foil for this season? All it did was solidify how poor of a character Sierra was, and I was definitely glad to see her get booted. It also took away time from potential development for Cameron, but let's be honest, they didn't really do much with him either. His big thing was, once again, trying to help Mike control and understand his disability. Yeah, they literally rehashed it, and they didn't add anything new to it. And of course, surprise, it doesn't work. It also kind of bugs me that despite all of the growth that Cameron had in last season, overcoming his bubble boy reputation and fragility, his departure involves him getting injured and put in a full body cast. Also, I'm pretty sure what they do here is grounds for a lawsuit, but what do I know? Sam, unfortunately, has very little going for him this season. He does at least get one moment to shine in the sun, coming through in a big way during the eating challenge, only for that win to be nullified when it turns out Sam saved some of what he was supposed to eat for a snack later on.
Will you stand up and turn out your pockets, please?
I have several questions.
First of all, those pancakes were filled with some of the most disgusting, reprehensible objects and filth that one could conjure in their mind. Why would you want to save that for a midnight snack?
You're an idiot.
Secondly, why would you take the chance of cheating like that when you know there are cameras fucking everywhere? Did you also just want to leave like Lindsay did and thought that this would be the best way to have your teammates throw you under the damn bus? Because, dude, they didn't just throw you under the bus, they fucking drove it. Next, we have Alejandro and Heather. I guess I should talk about these two together, since they ultimately end up together at the end. Sort of. I'll try to explain. You would think that facing off against him in World Tour and going to the end with him would have made her more keen and aware of his manipulative tactics. Yet somehow, he's able to scam away the Chris McClain immunity statuette away from her and take it for himself. Heather was the original antagonist, the original manipulator. To see her get played like this and go out so early was honestly kind of insulting, and she really doesn't get that much to do either. As for Alejandro, well, they tried with him at least. There are remnants here and there of his original personality, but it's still a significantly watered down version of Alejandro compared to what he was in World Tour. At least they get together at the end. Oh yeah, so they finally get together at the end.
What the hell's going on?
The money was getting in the way of our happiness.
Once we were eliminated, we could finally be together.
What the are you talking about? Was that even English?
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here. First of all, why the hell do they sound like they're brainwashed in this scene? Secondly, how did them getting eliminated ensure that they would come to this conclusion? Third of all, why the hell did Chris react with disgust at this news?
Oh no! Are you two dating?
Why do you suddenly have a problem with contestants dating each other? There's never been a rule against it, and you've never shown any real objection to it until this very moment. See, this is kind of a problem with how they've handled Chris's character post-World Tour. Not only has Chris become much more sadistic, but he's also hypocritical. Well, much more than he was in the past. What's even funnier about all of this is that in the end, it doesn't even matter anyway. Long story short, after Chris pulls yet another rule change during the final challenge, they end up stepping over each other in a hopeless pursuit of the $1 million. So all of that posturing they did over not wanting the money was a fucking lie anyway.
We have the greatest consolation prize of all. Each other.
Great. Just great.
Like, why did they do it like this at all? There are fans of the show that genuinely loved this couple because their personalities fit with each other so well and they were so authentic with each other. Why would they go the extra mile to fuck it up like this? What's even dumber than that is the only reason Chris pulled that stupid rule change out of his ass was because he was dissatisfied with how the final challenge was going. Apparently, contestants getting along and falling in love with each other is not good for ratings or some fucking horseshit like that. When ironically, it was those same friendships and romances that humanized the show and made it so damn popular to begin with. And of course, neither Alejandro or Heather won the $1 million. It was just a lame attempt to inject suspense into the finale. But of course, it ended up being one of the actual final two that won the $1 million, so all of this was just idiotic and pointless. Which reminds me, it's time to actually get to the final two. The last two characters of the cast, I haven't talked about yet besides Chris and Chef.
What did you see in him?
I'll take boring Mike over evil Mal any day.
Look, I've been on record saying I think these are two of the better characters from the second generation cast. Unfortunately, that still remains true here. They are two of the better characters to come from the cast this season, and the only reason that's the case is because Lindsay was eliminated first. Let's start with Zoe, whose character is fine for the most part, although this time she gets even more time to show off her badass skills. While in Revenge of the Island, she definitely felt like she could be a formidable contestant. This is the season where she truly proved her mettle. She wins like the last 4 challenges in a row, all on her own. She is a beast. Unfortunately, what holds back her character is, well, let's just say I think she got into the spare rig juice that I was hiding in my kitchen. She takes a long time to come around to the fact that Mike has been Mal full-time for nearly half of the season. It honestly makes her kind of look like a dumbass. I mean, for crying out loud, you know Mike has multiple personalities. It was understandable last season, but this season you really don't have an excuse. It's a shame too, because I really enjoyed Zoe's interactions with a lot of the first generation characters. She and Gwen got along pretty well for the most part. Sadly, once again, the shortened season means we were robbed of more time with these unique interactions. But now we have Mike. Oh Jesus, tap dancing Christ, Mike. So, you know how Mike has 4 different personalities thanks to his disability? Chester the old man, Vito the Italian stereotype, Manitoba the Indiana Jones ripoff, and Svetlana the gymnast? Well, it turns out we were all wrong about that. What? Turns out there's a 5th personality. This one named Mal. And he's basically just a troublemaker that fancies himself as evil. Honestly, I wish I could be nicer with that description, but I really can't. There are a lot of issues with this, but here's the biggest one. Mal is way too cartoonishly evil to work for this show. Like, the show goes way out of its way to try to portray Mike as this unstoppable entity while he's Mal. That his evilness, so to speak, cannot be topped by anyone, and I just can't take it seriously at all.
You! At your disservice. But I got rid of you after juvie!
Oh, so Mike does remember going to juvie. Okay, then. That just makes this all the more confusing then. They're trying to portray Mal as this unstoppable force of cartoonish evil. You know, the kinds that sit in those big chairs petting their cats and laughing maniacally. And it's like, no. The reason why antagonists like Heather, Justin, Courtney, Alejandro, and even Scott worked was because they were down to earth. They were grounded in some sort of reality. Mal really isn't. Or at least not nearly as much reality as the other aforementioned villains.
If I have my way, and I will, everybody loses.
See, he keeps talking like he wants to take over the fucking world.
Of course!
I'd like to remind everyone that the grand prize for winning Total Drama All-Stars is $1 million. So is that like the financial ceiling for this universe? Is it not possible to earn more than $1 million in any feasible capacity? If that's the case, then I can understand the tone they're going for, but even then, that's still stupid. See, the big problem is not that they're doing this plotline, but that they're doing this plotline after spending 3/4 of last season focusing so much on Mike and his multiple personalities. It's definite oversaturation, and it's worse if you didn't like Mike or his personalities. I at least did, at first. It's very much hit or miss for you in that season, but here I think it's definitely a miss. There's also other things about this that really bug me. The first is how the storyline is introduced at all. So at first everything is fine, Mike has more control of his personalities and can seemingly transform at will. But then he suffers an unfortunate head injury. This injury serves 2 purposes. First, it brings Mal back from the depths of his mind, and secondly, it locks him out of his other personalities.
Danged wall! Am I right, Chester? Huh? Yo, Vito! My shirt's off!
But then we learn that apparently Mal has the ability to tap into all of Mike's other personalities and can summon them against their will at his will. Also, Mike tries to solve the problem that his head injury created by giving himself another head injury.
I have to protect Zoe at all costs.
All of a sudden, I don't know what's happening.
Which results in Mike and the other personalities being enslaved in Mike's mind by Mal. Oh, but the absolute dumbest thing about this plotline is how the problem is solved.
I just can't! If pushing this button is gonna get rid of you guys, then I won't do it.
If pushing this button is gonna get rid of you guys, pushing this button is gonna get rid, pushing this button.
I don't understand!
See, everyone that suffers from dissociative identity disorder? All you have to do is press the big glowing reset button in your brain and poof, you'll be cured! I didn't come into this expecting it to annoy me as much as it does, but no, it does. Look, I don't expect or even want this show to be completely grounded in reality. By that logic, I would just watch a regular episode of Survivor instead of this show. But we've gone way off course in terms of trying to thread the line between being a cartoon and being a parody of Survivor shows. So yeah, the ultimate solution for defeating Mal in Mike's mind is to hit this big old reset button, get rid of all of his personalities presumably, and seemingly cure himself of this disability he has. So apart from it being a very stupid ending, it's not even a very exciting ending because there's almost no climax. Mike rounds up his personalities to fight Mal, and they don't even fucking fight Mal, they just press a fucking button! It also kind of points to a bigger problem overall with Mike's character that I've noticed between Revenge of the Island and All Stars. He really doesn't have that much of a character to him. We know almost nothing about Mike that isn't connected to an alternate personality. So it's almost like he doesn't really have a character at all, which is kind of a problem when you have him last through the entire season. He's very enjoyable when he's bouncing off of Zoe as himself, but other than that, he really isn't. And that ultimately serves to make the finale and the final challenge less interesting as a result. And before I get to the final challenge, I want to talk about Chris and Chef as characters.
Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you forever. Fuck yourselves. Go fuck yourselves. You fuck.
Chef is fine by himself, I guess, but Chris is continuing his downward spiral into insufferability. He's especially painful this season. He'll randomly add chaos to certain challenges just because he thinks what's happening is boring. And when he says that, he is usually talking about contestants getting along, because apparently that's now the cardinal sin. And don't get me wrong, this didn't come out of nowhere. He's been growing increasingly narcissistic and sociopathic since the second season. But in seasons 4 and 5, and definitely 6, it has gotten incredibly obnoxious.
My optometrist tested that, and it turns out my hindsight is actually quite bad.
But I'm not gonna lie, he could still make me laugh with one-liners like that. That line just sets me off every time. I don't know why, it's a dumb line. And that's basically the cast and the game itself for All Stars. Just such wasted potential from the interactions to the game itself. And the 13-episode order is not helping. And now here are some smaller things that really don't have any other place in the video to go, so I'm just gonna complain about them here. Why does the game keep utilizing Boney Island after it's already fulfilled its purpose? Like, they explicitly say that Boney Island is used exclusively for the Chris McClane immunity statuette, but it's found halfway through the season, and yet they keep using it as exile for that stupid feature, even though there's no longer a statuette to find. I guess it was just another change Chris made to add drama. In universe, the show celebrates its 100th episode, but the episode count isn't even right. I guess in canon, those two after-season specials that came after Island and Action don't count towards the episode total, but that's just me being pedantic at this point. What the hell does the show see in Gollum Ezekiel? They bring him back again during that 100-episode celebration where he kidnaps Chris and threatens him for the money. Maybe I'm just missing something, but I don't see the appeal of Gollum Ezekiel. I miss when he was a real character. Or, you know, at least a fake real character, you know? So the final challenge has Zoe and Mal climb up a volcano in order to pull a sword out of a rock. You know, Excalibur, that stuff. Each of them are permitted to pick 2 contestants who have been eliminated to help them in this final challenge, while the unchosen contestants float away into the sun!
Yeah, probably should have tied them down.
Fuck you!
I mentioned this briefly earlier, but I really didn't like how Chris just up and changed the rules to some challenges while those challenges were still going on. For example, in Courtney's elimination episode, the challenge is to initially make this convoluted ice cream sundae to feed Chris's interns, whom he claims he hasn't fed in a week.
I know, funny, right?
Only to flip-flop at the last minute and have everyone eat their own sundaes to win immunity. For the sake of context, Courtney's sundae is a total clown show with literal bird shit as the finishing touch. And then Chris further changes the rules when Courtney tries to get out of eating her sundae after Zoe already won the challenge.
Everyone has to eat their own sundae. You won't get anything else to eat until you finish the sundae you thought was good enough to feed my intern.
Considering what they get fed on a consistent basis by Chef Hatchet, this isn't the burn that you think it is, Chris. Once again, probably something Chris did solely for the purpose of adding drama to his show. But the most egregious example of this is in the penultimate episode. It's a pirate-themed scavenger hunt, where 2 of the remaining 4 contestants will be eliminated at the end of the challenge. Apparently unbeknownst to Gwen.
I thought 3 of us were going to the finale.
Yeah, no.
Why would you think that, Gwen? It's always been a 2-contestant final challenge. You've literally had only 1 season so far where you haven't been competing. You should know this!
Or you might be legally retarded.
Anyway, Chris specifically states that automatic elimination hinges on coming in last or empty-handed.
Whoever comes back last, or worse, empty-handed, goes directly to the flush of shame.
1 hour later!
Gwen arrives last at the finish line, but comes bearing loot, unlike Mike and Scott, who failed to bring theirs back because of bullshit. Guess who gets the first axe? See, thanks to some sabotage by Mal, the painting that Gwen was supposed to bring back got damaged, so she decided to try to fix it up. And she ruined it.
Ugh! What's that earthy aroma?
It's bear poop.
And apparently that's enough for Gwen to earn the elimination.
For showing up last and defacing my portrait, Gwen gets the flush.
Bull fucking shit.
See, I get that stuff like this is supposed to be funny, and maybe if the season overall had been better, I wouldn't be as upset over this, but I am. Anyway, is there anything that I might have missed? Oh yeah, how about the island? So it turns out for the final challenge, they used a fracking machine on the island, which causes the island to sink. No, really. Well, I guess that's the end of Camp Wawanakwa, isn't it? I just want to remind you all that the revival is supposedly going back to Camp Wawanakwa, so how the fuck are they going to retcon this? And that's basically it for All Stars. Yeesh, this season was a mess. But honestly, the worst thing about it was the wasted potential. The lack of interactions that we had between the first generation and second generation cast. Because there were so few episodes this season, the crossover potential was almost entirely nullified. Not to mention Chris's increasingly sadistic behavior, the retreading of Mike's disability story, only somehow making it lamer, the character derailment for a lot of the OG cast. All of it just adds up to a very disappointing season, and it's definitely the worst of the franchise thus far. I don't think it's possible for a Total Drama season to be worse than All Stars, but rest assured, the upcoming season gave it a hell of a fight for the top spot. Come back next time, where we look at the final season of the original series,
Total Drama Pockettail Island!
Also, one more thing I forgot to mention about both All Stars and Pockettail Island is that they shortened the opening theme sequence. I can only contemplate why they did that because they completely butchered the rhythm and the song. It was the one saving grace that I was looking forward to in All Stars, and they completely fucked it up.
You done fucked it up!
Surely that's not a good sign for Pockettail Island, is it?